Well, I think the answers to your questions are complex, but in general, your last point is accurate. Yes. I think when I mentioned entropy, I could have also said bankruptcy. And I think that's effectively where we're headed. The British Empire did not leave India until it had a debt to GDP ratio of 254%, thanks to our deliberate effort to bankrupt the British during the Second World War. As a result, they had to make some hard choices, and the first choice they made was abandon India, which heretofore had been one of the principal reasons for which they did everything up until the end of the Second World War to maintain that empire. So I think we're in a similar position, frankly. I don't know exactly when it will happen, but we're on that path. Unless, of course, you believed in the notion of modern economics that debt doesn't matter. Good luck. I think we're going to get an education here very shortly. So that's part of the answer. Secondly, you've got to follow the money in Washington, D.C. Where does the money go? Who becomes a millionaire? Who ends up moving into Great Falls and McLean and living lavishly? Who are the members of the Senate, various committees, banking and finance, defense committees, appropriators? Who are the people that become rich and powerful as a result of their service? Where does their money come from? Where are they sending their favors? How are they rewarding their donors? That's a very important question. There are a lot of answers to that, but I think it's important to also understand, to contrast that sharply with the American people, which I think has been the point of others here today, to say on any given day, the overwhelming majority of Americans, and this has been true throughout the 20th century, could care less what happens beyond the borders of the United States. And that has also been our greatest weakness. People in Washington know that most of the time, most people don't care. So what do you want to do? The first thing is you professionalize, or at least you have this thing we call a volunteer military. And the voluntary military then can be sent pretty much anywhere you want to go, because only about 1% of the population is affected by casualties that you may take. The other lesson is that if you take very few casualties, it doesn't matter if you lose 10,000 over, say, the space of 12 or 18 months, as far as Washington is concerned, but as long as you don't have too many casualties on any given day, most people aren't going to pay much attention. Remember the famous comment by George Bush II, W, go shopping at the mall, relax. That was the idea. In other words, continue to consume, question nothing, be sheep, be happy. We'll take care of everything for you and make you safe. And then there's the stupid idea that the more money you spend on defense, the more military capability you get. Nothing could be further from the truth. If anything is evident of that, all you have to do is look at the Russian army. Spent remarkably few dollars by our standards. They've extracted infinitely more capability. So the question is, where does the money go? Who benefits from it? And that answers a lot of your questions. And right now, one of the reasons that Donald Trump was so widely hated and despised was not simply because he was a brash, annoying, irritating New Yorker. It was also because he threatened the money flows. And whether it was Inhofe or Schumer or Markey or Cruz or anybody else, everyone has a stake in keeping the money flowing in the right directions. That's the biggest problem in Washington. So once you figure out where the money is going, obviously defense is a big part of that, but it's not the only part. Then you begin to answer the question, well, why does nothing change? Well, nothing changes because the money continues to flow. And the hope is now that we'll have a massive increase in the defense budget, which is hard to conceive of or comprehend given where we already are, on the basis of what has happened in Ukraine, which in reality, as my predecessors have pointed out, most people could care less what happens in Ukraine. I think the last polling was that only 26% of Americans polled thought we should even be involved anywhere in Eastern Europe. And if you ask on any given day in Seattle or St. Louis or San Francisco about NATO, at least half of them will look at you as though you've landed from another planet. They don't even know what it is. So here we are. We were always rich and powerful so that we could pretty much do what we wanted. We were insulated by the oceans. Then we developed a nuclear deterrent to the point where anybody who engages in a nuclear attack against us is committing suicide. So where are we? We're approaching bankruptcy. And like the British who left India, we will finally bring the troops home when it becomes necessary for reasons of bankruptcy, because the first thing everybody will cut in discretionary spending is defense. We're not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid before we cut defense. And that's coming.